Lockheed Martin, of course, most of us here know, was a creation of the post-Cold War predicament of the weapons makers. 1993, the Cold War had ended, and a fellow who was the CEO of Martin Marietta, a guy named Norman Augustine, realized that the military budget at the time was going to plateau. It was going to plateau. It wasn't going there. At the same time, a guy who was the CEO, who is rather legendary in business circles these days, statistically called, is a guy named Jack Welch. And he used to have an expression that if you are number one, if you are number two, number three, number four, number five at anything, you will get a cold if number one sneezes. And of course, General Electric at the time was the third or fourth largest weapons producer, including nuclear weapons producer in the country. Our group had spent nearly 20 years focusing in on General Electric. And so Norman Augustine had this idea of a merging of defense industries, of military industries. And it is why he was at the time called the standard bearer of the weapons industry. And his first idea was to orchestrate the sale of General Electric Aerospace, which was larger than Martin Marietta as a whole. General Electric Aerospace, headquartered here in Valley Forge, larger than Martin Marietta as a whole. And with the idea that as soon as Martin Marietta acquired General Electric Aerospace, it would merge with Lockheed, which was already the number one weapons corporation in the country. And hence, in April of 1993, the creation of Lockheed Martin, which at birth announced itself as, and this is just the beginning. In the first year of its existence, it acquired no fewer than 32 different units of various military arms producers. It was so large that under a number of antitrust threats, it had to spin off a number of its weapons industries, most specifically in the area of electronics and in satellites. Indeed, one of those companies it spun off is now the fifth leading weapons corporation in the country, and that is L3, located over in Camden, Cherry Hill, St. Louis, etc. Think of it though. Just one of the units that it had to spin off has now become the number 5 weapons maker in the country. In the 1960s, when I was working at NARMIC, at American Friends Service Committee, and Ed remembers NARMIC, we used to every year print up this list of either the top 50 or top 100 military contractors. And at this point, we'd be talking about 5. We're talking number 1, Lockheed Martin. We're talking number 2, Boeing. And there is a considerable difference between their relationship or amount of military contracting. In regard to Lockheed Martin, we're talking about no less than 97% of all of its contracting is military. It was envisioned as a military arms producing corporation. Compared to Boeing, which has 43% of its military contracting, or of its general income through military contracting. And the picture is widened out with Northrop Grumman, already mentioned in the slide, and L3. I'd like to say just a little bit about some of a couple of points that Val had raised about in regard to Lockheed Martin, in regard to the whole area of a weapon system being developed and then searching for its mission, basically. The funding comes first, and then it searches for a mission, and that's when we know about it. That's when we know about it. It's searching for its mission. Well, isn't it great we have this now to handle that? And in my judgment, that is what has happened mostly in regard to Reagan's plan of strategic defense initiative. That it has become an ongoing weapons program to be applied to other weapon systems. And let me give you an example. Lockheed Martin's single largest military contract is not out in Sunnyvale, California, which is where all the Trident missiles are made, but is rather over there in Morristown, New Jersey. For those of you who have ever driven down the Turnpike, you'll see a big Navy cruiser jugging out of a cornfield. Well, that's the test site for the Aegis system, the Aegis Command and Control Navy cruiser system. In recent years, what has happened with that, in addition to its stated mission, which was as the center point for naval battle groups, like in the Persian Gulf, but what has happened to it in recent years, and it's interesting because what Aegis was always referred to many years ago was as the Star Wars of the sea because of its ability to simultaneously track, detect, and attack more than 100 targets simultaneously, above, on, and below the sea. Now, what the Pentagon makers and the Lockheed Martin envisioners are doing is applying that to missile defense. And right now, and every time you hear that Taiwan has, for example, purchased Aegis equipment, every time you hear that South Korea has purchased Aegis equipment, that all has to do with missile defense. Because what has been done is that the Aegis cruisers and destroyers have been adapted with missiles that can, or purportedly, shoot down missiles in flight. And the whole idea is against China. There's a forward deployment, as it's called, of those anti-missile defense systems, Aegis missile defense systems, Aegis ballistic missile defense systems against China. And that's just one example.